please. Scott, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Hutchison, good to see you this evening. Good to see you this evening. All right. Are there, Mr. Forster, are there any additions to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor, we do have one tonight. We have a discussion on the Spurs display location, and we're going to put that on 3B under council business.
Thank you. All right, the consent agenda, regular meeting brief from August 11th, and the annual liquor license renewals has been circulated. Are there any questions or concerns about the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as circulated.
Thank you. Second. It's been moved and seconded. Again, any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. At this time, this is the opportunity for visitors, appearances, and requests. Anyone that would like to speak to the council, please come to the podium and state your name and address and tell us your wishes. Is there anyone online? Okay, thank you. Well, we will then move on to, there are no council presentations. Under council business, we have purchase Harco utility tamper.
Good evening. Matt Wiederholt, City of Prineville Railway. So this is very exciting for us because this kind of officially kicks off our project that we've been working on for 2.5 years now. So, tonight the request is to approve the purchase of a Harsco utility tamper. So this is a machine that goes out there for us. We'll pick up the rail, level the rail, makes a good solid base for us. One thing to point out on this particular one, it's been upfitted so we can also straighten the rail. So it kind of does a little bit of everything for us. There's only one company that makes these, which is Harsco. So not surprising, we only had one bid. However, we decided to put that out there in case maybe we'd get a year or two old, maybe lease return or something like that, just kind of testing the waters. And of course we didn't. Tonight, you'll be approving the purchase through a company called Precision. So Harsco Rail builds the parts, but they have Precision basically put them together or build the smaller ones for them. So it's a subsidiary of Harsco. So we're actually purchasing it from Precision. A couple things to point out aside from aligning is it does come with 2 weeks of operator training and how to maintain it. So this is a very high maintenance machine. So we're very excited that they're going to fly someone in from Kansas to train our crew and train us how to maintain this. And it also comes with a 1-year package for all the maintenance wear pieces and things of that nature. Again, these are very high maintenance. This represents a pretty significant chunk of our grant budget of 1.3 million for equipment. So we did that on purpose because again, these are a lot of maintenance, a lot of wear and tear. So we wanted to spend as much money on this piece of equipment as needed. So we had something, well into the future. So with that, we'll ask if there's any questions. Yes.
It's so unique that you only get one bidder and there's not very many other people out there that do the same thing, or
yeah, there's only one company that bids them or builds them. Right now in the United States, there's only 2 machines on the lot and we have our name on one of them. There's a third one in production right now. The third one will be 10% more when it comes out here in a couple of months. And in 2027, there'll be 15% more than this particular. So I feel pretty lucky that we actually have our name tentatively on one. He informed me yesterday that the UP came in and took the other 2 that are one on the lot and in production. So Yeah, so to answer, they're very specialized. Again, build America, we got to build America, buy America, and there's only one company that builds them. So
Good thing you were successful or potentially successful.
a week later, we would have had to wait a while and we'd have been paying more money.
But as you say, this has been a long time in coming because this is something we have wanted to have for years.
Yeah, I mean, typically in a railroad our size, you want a full tamp, every 3 years, 4 years. And then like as a maintenance, you'll hit your joints and your curves 18 months or so, 2 years. And the last time we did it was in 2009. H&S did our line for us. Current rate to have it done is about $7,800 a mile. So, 18 miles. So over time, it will pay for itself. Given that we're a 20% match, I mean, it's going to look pretty good. So.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
No.
No questions. Maintenance is key, and this is a vital part of the infrastructure of the railroad. So I think great work.
So is there a motion?
I move that the city council approve the purchase of the Harsco utility tamper from Precision Railway Equipment for $694,800 delivered utilizing Chrissy grant funding and authorize the general manager to execute the necessary purchase documents and agreements.
I'll second. Oh,
Been moved and seconded. Again, any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, this is the add-on, has to do with the relocation of the spurs. And Bill Burgess, who was instrumental in getting all of the renovation done and relocating it, et cetera, would like to speak to us because the committee has a recommendation to the council.
Welcome. I mean, thank you for welcoming us. Got a little hard copy I'd like to leave with everybody that kind of encapsulates the project. Just a couple of slides. This has only been going on for 14 months. But as you will see, there are. Steve, would you like them?
Sure. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you.
So this is where we are as of April, and this slide is really a comment on how much Rich Evans helped in this whole process. We were kind of debating, how heavy Spurs was, and he went down and looked at it, and I got a call the next day that it's been moved, and indeed it was out at Ranchers Memorial, and we thank the Bowman Museum for letting us store it there. Told him it'd be a couple of months, and it's only been 4. We did get some folks out to look at it. Rick Becerra from Ricky B's, and then finally Monty Kurtz from Arcus Asylum came out, and a plan was developed. So on August 11th, a couple of weeks ago, we moved the sculpture to Pal Butte for restoration at his shop, Arc Asylum. Kiwanis has donated the money for the steel, and Monty is a board member with Kiwanis, and at the board meeting in July, when the request for funds was granted, he asked to look at the sculpture to assess damages himself, and he immediately said he'd like to donate the labor for the restoration. So at that point, things were really beginning to come together. And so on August 11th, there it is. Spurs is heading out to Pal Butte. One of those beautiful days that we've had recently. It arrived at Arc Asylum, and with Monty ready to go to work. So once he got it in a shop, we discovered there was a little more work than expected. Fair amount of rust. Weep holes have been installed at every low point in the sculpture, and all of the delaminated steel is being repaired, and I'll show you what I mean. So spurs got beheaded, and that's the base that that is delaminated and structurally unsound. So that will be completely replaced, and things will return to normal. But remember, we had a plan, so she'll be as good as new in no time. And the next step is our recommendation on the location, the final. Well, actually, I'm going to use the word temporary location. The spot is big enough, and I think it'll be great there. A little history, fellow on the right has been involved in this. I mean, recently we've been in communication with him, Tom Morandi. He's the original sculptor that helped design spurs in 1982. And then you probably recognize Greg Conklin. He got very interested in this and wanted to be kept informed just because of his involvement with Warpaint and Maverick. And then going back to 1982, I found this in the Spurs yearbook. That was the model that was made that the students used to actually create themselves the final version. And I don't know if you can read this, we won't go through it, but this is the original bronze commemorative plaque. The 12 students are on top and those 3 columns. Talks about the chamber and Crook County High School as the primary sponsors. And it was just a list of names and companies that many of you recognize either as existing folks and companies or those from the past. Currently, the class of 26 is making they've already made a beautiful frame and a pedestal that'll be mounted right next to Spurs at its new location. And so we give thanks to Dan McNary and his students. That's the end of my presentation. You now know where we're asking for you to recommend or to approve that we put it.
Thank you. Now, there is, as you are aware, there is an issue because that will be technically is on the county side of the lot, of the block. And they will ultimately be required to give their blessing on the siting as well.
Good.
But I think that it's up to discuss and if there are any, there's any opposition or recommendations alternative to the one brought to us by the committee.
Well, I think it's a really good location because some of the others that had been discussed, one of them would have required doing some landscaping and some change of plumbing, irrigation. Of course, the roundabout up on the hill was discussed, but that wasn't the choice of the committee. And we did talk to Ellen Waterston, and she wanted downtown by her choice, not knowing, I mean, she didn't realize that she was really going to make a difference so much other than just give her opinion. But she wanted it somewhere where people would see it, pass by it, enjoy it. And in asking her what the purpose was originally for the sculpture was to have something to welcome people to Prineville. And so she thought that this would make a good secondary location.
Other comments?
And yeah, and I agree with Marv. I didn't like the location up here in the roundabout. I just didn't think that was the right place for it. And I didn't think enough people were gonna get to see it. So I think it definitely will get more exposure here probably than it would any place else in town.
I didn't appreciate the plaque with the names of all of the participants that put the project together, supported the project, etc. And the fact that we can put it out here in front of City Hall and present that to the community and those passersby, I think is a great idea. And I appreciate the committee's recommending that to the council to move that forward.
I will finally say that it is a unanimous decision by the committee. This was as of about 4 or 5 days ago. So I anticipate the county will approve. But and I think I was debating whether to talk about this, but I think I will, and then I'll get off the stage here. But one of the ideas is that we consider this as a temporary location. And in talking to Steve Forrester, temporary as in maybe 5 to 10 years. And that when and if the new intersection, the new configuration gets developed down at the Y, that some thought go into a permanent and very visible spot for spurs, and that it be returned there like it was originally installed in 82. So that seemed to be, I don't know, that sort of seemed like a good idea that a lot of us had. So that'll be up to you folks. We'll see 5 or 10 years from now. Anyway, thank you for your time.
We may find that this is a better location.
Exactly. Yep.
That's going to be up for discussion down the road. But if there is a recommendation from the council, I don't know if we need to take a vote on that.
I think so. Well, I mean, it is somewhat of a decision, but I mean, the city's required to give mutual consent of any improvement within the plaza. So the plaza is owned jointly by the city and county. And so pursuant to 2000, actually it's 2003 IGA, but it was 2012 amendment. It talks about any construction within the plaza shall be undertaken by mutual consent, city and county. And so you would have to approve, and then also it shall be administered in accordance with designs approved by both. So all we have, I mean, we have a general location, I guess. I just saw a picture.
Where is the general location?
Is it the actual location or
That is the actual location. That was,
that picture?
yeah. See if I can get back to.
Standing in front of or by war paint, there are 2 lampposts, and it appears to be in front of the flag.
County building would be on the right on this picture.
Right.
And
So, yeah, I think council tonight would approve the structure of the spurs being placed within the plaza, subject to county consent. And then basically, if the county also approves, then we would work out the staffs, I think would just work out the details in regards to actually executing and putting it within place. But if the city council tonight approved the structure being placed within the plaza as recommended, then he could go to the county.
and is that something I would do to go to the county, or is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, you would need to go to the county.
So at some point, if you approve, I will go to the county and say, this is the decision of the city of Prineville.
I think they're going to make a vote tonight.
The county I'm talking about.
I know, but if the city votes tonight, in order for those spurs to go there, you're going to need to get the consent of the county, which we don't have any control over.
So I will be approaching the county for consent.
Correct.
Gotcha. That's what my question was.
I have to admit, I got questioned. I thought the spurs were intended to be a little bit further over, so they'd be almost centered between where war paint is and the building here, so it wouldn't be right there. It'd be spaced a little bit, so it'd be almost like equal when you look at them from the street.
That's a function of my photoshopping.
Okay.
Oh.
So there isn't a lot of, it could be moved 1 foot one way or the other, but yeah, that was not intentional. That was worn out.
Yeah, fair enough. I was a little worried about that because I thought it needed a little bit more coordination and actual imagery to fully have a particular spot. But I mean, in essence, you're still going to have a general recommendation that will go into the plaza. He'll go to the county. If the county's in agreement, the actual specific location will be worked out between city staff and county staff to actually locate it and install it.
X marks the spot.
Something like that.
So is there a motion to have the spurs placed on the plaza?
I'll make a motion to approve the placement of the spurs in the city county plaza.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, and we've discussed the details. Are there any questions yet? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Great.
Thank you
very much.
And I will be glad to go with you to the county presentation.
I'll be in touch. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. So. Next on the agenda, under staff reports and requests, we have a quarterly financial report by Lori Cooper Entros.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Lori Hooper Antrim, Finance Director for the record. I'm here to present the fourth quarter financial report for fiscal year ending June 30th of 2026. These figures are preliminary and unaudited. The final results may change slightly as we complete our annual audit, with the independent audit work coming in the beginning of October. This slide provides a citywide snapshot of all funds. As of June 30th, total resources were approximately $51 million and expenditures totaled $48.1 million. Overall fund balances increased by approximately $2.9 million, and that ended the year at over $31.9 million. This growth was driven primarily by strong franchise fees revenues, property tax collection, investment earnings, and prudent expenditure management. Funds with notable increases included the general fund by approximately $3.4 million. The transportation also increased by approximately $571,000. The railroad by approximately $462,000. Meadow Lakes by approximately $218,000. The administrative and financial service increased by $474,000. And the buildings facility fund increased by approximately $533,000. Planned decreases occurred in the PERS POB fund, the water SDC, water and wastewater operations, and public works due to debt service payments, capital projects, infrastructure investment, and equipment replacements. Overall, the city's financial position remains strong with healthy reserves entering into FY27. Are there any questions before I move on to the general fund? General fund revenues reached approximately $16.9 million, or 121% of the budget. Franchise fees came in at 125% of budget. Property taxes are at 108%. The intergovernmental revenues are at 103%, and that's largely due to increased school resource officer funding for their extra SRO. Expenditures were 58% of the budget, resulting in a fund balance increase of approximately $3.4 million, or 32%. This graph illustrates the growth of the general fund reserves, with the fund balance starting the new fiscal year at roughly $14 million. These reserves provide stability against economic uncertainty and allow the city to address future infrastructure and strategic priorities. This slide provides an update estimate of the general fund's strategic reserve allocations. These resources provide flexibility to address future council priorities, including infrastructure, community enhancement, and city economic vitality initiatives. Based on year-end performance, we're estimating approximately $3.3 million in additional allocations following the completion of the audit. This slide also summarizes the current bucket balances for FY26 strategic uses, which included Chrissy grant match of $400,000, vacuum truck of $600,000, and the purchase of the Sea Hill property. Property tax collection totaled approximately $3.2 million, exceeding budget expectations. Delinquent tax collections also remained stable through the down, but though they're down from the prior year. Franchise fee revenues remain one of the city's most significant resource sources. Electrical franchise fees are roughly $10.2 million, up in comparison to the prior year. Natural gas came in at roughly $147,000, which is a decrease of approximately $23,000. Cable TV is down $15,000, and waste disposal is down slightly, coming in at $87,000. The overall strength in electrical franchise fees was one of the primary contributors to the increase in the general fund's reserve this year. Transient lodging tax came in at roughly $477,000. While slightly below budget, collections remained consistent with recent years and reflect continued visitor activity and lodging demand. Are there questions about the general fund? Transportation fund revenues are at 106% of the annual budget, or $2.5 million. Intergovernmental revenue is at approximately 1.2 million, with annual gas tax collection being up over the prior year. Total expenditures are at roughly 1.9 million, or 64% of the annual budget. And capital improvement projects associated with paving and striping started at the tail end of the fiscal year and into the beginning of FY27. The Transportation Fund finished the year in a stronger than budgeted position, primarily due to the timing of these planned capital projects not being completed within the fiscal year, which resulted in a positive increase in fund balance of approximately $571,000. As mentioned earlier, state gas tax is up slightly through the fourth quarter, with revenues totaling $968,000 compared to the prior year at $919,000. This slide shows the transportation fund balance trends over the last 10 years. Unaudited beginning fund balance for FY27 is $1.3 million. Are there questions about the transportation fund? Moving on to the railroad. The railroad fund finished FY26 with an increase in fund balance of approximately $462,000. Operating revenues exceeded budget in several areas, including rail services, freight depot, operations, and leases. Total revenue was approximately $1.8 million. Budget to actual comparisons are impacted by the timing of CRISI grant reimbursements, which are expected in FY27. Expenditures totaled approximately 1.3 million, with several capital projects and equipment purchases deferred into the next fiscal year, one which was approved tonight. Materials and services expenditures continue to be closely monitored and may require a future budget adjustment to address costs associated with the derailment and fire incident that occurred earlier in fiscal 26. This graph shows the continued growth of the railroad fund reserves. Maintaining adequate reserve supports future capital improvements, deferred maintenance, and revenue fluctuation. Freight volumes increased by 54 cars compared to the prior year, driven primarily by introduction of the new barley commodity. This commodity accounted for approximately 32% of total railroad haulage through year end. The increased activity also positively affected freight depot revenues for the year. Looking specifically at fourth quarter operations, monthly performance fluctuated, which is typical for railroad operations. The quarter ended with a net loss of approximately $40,000. However, year-to-date operations produced a net operating gain of approximately $117,000. Are there questions about the railroad? The golf course fund had another strong year. Total revenues reached approximately $2.5 million, exceeding budget by more than $384,000. Golf activity continued to outperform expectations, generating approximately $1.9 million in revenue. Expenditures were controlled at approximately $2.1 million, allowing the fund to generate an operating increase of approximately $218,000. This graph highlights significant improvement in fund balance over the recent years. The fund ended the fiscal year with a balance of approximately $1.3 million, its strongest position in many years and maybe ever. This spike in FY21 was the injection of debt dollars that was spent on golf carts in the beginning of FY22. And this blue line here shows where the fund balance would have been without those extra dollars. This slide shows activity across key categories for charges for services, including daily play, cart rentals, pro shop sales, and patron card activity. All categories have shown favorable growth over the last several years, further reinforcing the golf fund's strong financial performance. Profit and loss statement of operations shows a profit in all 3 months of the quarter, with total fourth quarter profits being $296,000. Are there any questions about the golf course fund? Okay. That was your quarterly report. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Part of your responsibility, as I perceive it, is to make sure that we are on track with what our goals, et cetera, are. And from what I'm hearing from you, yes, we are. We're following that quite closely. Is there anything that we ought to do that would be better than what we're currently doing?
It's a very loaded question. The only thing that I would say is that I really think it's important that we're always keeping our critical infrastructure needs in mind and that we're always prioritizing those. I don't think that you don't do that. I just want that to always be on the forefront, that we're making sure that we're providing the critical services that are required of a city and that we're maintaining our critical infrastructure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, next is city manager's report. Mr. Foot.
Thank you, Mayor. On the public safety side, Katie Kemper, our 911 director, reported they held call taker interviews and out of that have selected one candidate to move forward in the process. So that's good news. On the public works side, before I go to public works, I'd like to congratulate Chief Shane. He actually took a few days off here last week, so we appreciate him getting out of the office and enjoying life a little bit. So thank you, Shane. And thank you, Tom, for standing in for him. Did a great job. Moving on to public works, if you've been down North Main, you can see absolutely fantastic paving job. Casey and his team and our contracted folks at Tri-County, I believe, did a fabulous job. We're striping right now as last couple of days, getting that all cleaned up. Great job there. Seal coating as well, or those projects are wrapping up. And the ASR2 well house is almost completed. And we still expect to be operational October. On the railroad side, Matt and Caroline met with the FRA, Federal Railroad Administration. The meeting with the FRA representative went very well, and we're putting a good word for our railroad in the next round of CRISI grants. The one, some of the funding from the previous one we talked about earlier today at this meeting on the purchase that Matt was talking about. So we're going for another round of that stuff to continue to invest in our railroad as we go forward in time. So more to come on this effort, but it looks very positive at this point. Meadow Lakes, as Lori reported, is having a great year and a little bit of concern that was shared by Zach with the smoke issue. Slowed play down a little bit, but as soon as that relieved, play has bounced back and we're busy as ever. And clubhouse paint also, that project went really well and looks great. If you haven't been out there, take a look. Moving on to the airport, Kelly came in and talked to us last week. He's pretty busy up there, obviously, with the single engine air tankers, the seats, as they say, and the helicopters that have been assisting in the fighting the wildfires. In planning, Josh reports activity remains steady with residential applications. Moving on to HR, Carrie has rolled out an employee AI policy for its first review. So we're working on how we're going to manage the AI systems that are available to us as we move forward in time and how they will be integrated into our daily work. We'll move forward with the meetings to fine tune the policy in the upcoming months. On the IT side of things, they were assisting a lot of communication efforts on the fire side as we were in the heat of the battle. So a lot of our IT guys have been working that side of the street, so to speak. And as those fire activities are slowing down, they're going to get back focused on some of the regular routine work they need to be doing around the city. But again, I think kudos to our IT staff for keeping the communication systems up and going and being flexible as some of those systems were compromised as the fires progressed. So that was great that they were able to keep everything up and going. On the finance side, obviously Lori presented our quarterly report for the fourth quarter and closing that out and preparing for the year-end audits, as she mentioned in her report. And then also we have a application out for a finance assistant one position, and we received 26 strong applicants interested in that job. So we'll be going through that process. And then on the PR side, Sean Ray reports that all is good in social media. She'll be working together, putting content for our September efforts and public relations. Mayor and council, reminder that next council meeting we'll be working on the council vacancy candidates. So be ready for that. And I'm sure Lisa will have some information out in between now and then. Moving on to other, Russ has been graciously participating in our weekly staff reports. We really appreciate Russ from the fire department, I should say. And so what he's reporting is that the wildfires are winding down. We did have a little bit of a blow up last Tuesday that was blamed on Jerry Brummer. But it sounds as though he was there when it blew up as the only thing. About 200 acres were compromised. Crews jumped in and got it very aggressively and got that handled in short order. But the main big news is area fire camps are demobilizing. You'll see a lot of traffic in town as that continues the next couple of weeks, and hopefully we won't have any new fires crop up that'll cause problems. So hopefully we're at the tail end of a fire season with any luck. So that concludes my report. Are there questions?
Just to add to that a little bit, I was up there when that fire took off.
Yeah,
And we drove up there and it was probably 5 acres
yeah,
and they were working on it and just thought it was inside the black area. We went on up to the campground up there and turned around and come back, and it was about 50 acres in a half an hour.
Wow.
And the humidity was 1%. It was 97 degrees outside. And when that takes off, they had 5 helicopters on it and they had 2 planes on it dumping retardant, and it was 200 acres.
right, right.
It's just unreal how fast that could take off.
Well, we're glad you're there to supervise.
Yeah. I was there to take pictures.
Yeah. Thank you, council.
Thank you. All right. Are there any council reports? All right, we'll move on to ordinances. Jared Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. Jared Reed, City Attorney for the record. Daryl's gonna help me out here. So what you have in front of you is ordinance 1310. This is an ordinance that's amending chapter 92 to the Prineville Code regarding nuisance and in particular odor nuisances. And so what you see up there is 93.25, and what is in blue is our current odor nuisance definition. So odor premises which are in such a condition as to cause an offensive odor, which are in an unsanitary condition. So a very vague definition in regards to what an odor nuisance is. In particular, from my opinion, in its review, an unenforceable vague code. And so this came up in about, obviously, due to during this year, there was some complaints regarding odor within the city and some conditions of those properties not causing nuisances and what that would be, what would define a nuisance. And so it was suggested that our code was needing to be amended, and I agreed with that suggestion. In particular, what was particularly needed was no, I don't. I have it. Thank you. Is to update the particular ordinance to make it more consistent with Oregon case law. So Oregon case law came out in about the mid 2010s and talked about what it meant for an odor to be offensive. And in essence, for an odor to be offensive, they looked towards actual factors or objective factors. And within your ordinance, you'll see that we created a table that was based upon DEQ regulations. And DEQ regulations, this was based on a report done by the Department of Environmental Control in response to this particular case, which was actually, out of all things, a criminal case about what was an offensive odor because it involved a disorderly conduct. But regardless, the Court of Appeals made this analysis, and then that was used to make this particular table, which was offensive. And this looks at certain things like frequency, duration, intensity, and offensiveness. And those are sort of the four things that the Court of Appeals said that you should look at. So for instance, odor can be very intense, but it might not be offensive, right? So like you could have a really intense, good smell. And so that's kind of what the Court of Appeals talked about. And so that's what we did. We tried to mirror that with the Department of Environmental Control to create this table in which if the city received 10 completed odor intake forms, which would be created after the ordinance was put into place, from at least 10 different individuals with separate addresses over a 60-day period. And sort of if you did this matrix and it averaged out to a value of 14 or greater, then it could be considered a nuisance. We would still have to do a complaint and go to court and actually prove that particular case. So anybody that's accused of a nuisance does have due process rights. They have the ability to make their case in front of an impartial judge. And then we have to prove the case by a preponderance of the evidence. So we developed this ordinance. So in essence, 93.25 up there is just going to be replaced with that on the first page with a new paragraph that makes it much more consistent with Oregon law. And then we're going to add 93.30, which isn't in the code at all now, to make this odor ordinance in place. So we have a bunch of definitions that were also borrowed from DEQ regulations, and then created that table. The penalties, the current penalty already in place. However, it's per occurrence, so it's up to $500, but it could last, for a number of days or weeks. So if the first presentation tonight, if it is passed tonight, you would have to have a second presentation done on September 8th. And if passed, then it would go into effect 30 days thereafter. And I'm open to any questions.
From my perspective, thank you for the quantification and qualification so that we can actually put brackets around and identify specifically what it is, and it can be enforced.
Yeah, having a matrix to go by, I think that really puts some teeth in it where there wasn't any teeth in it before.
Well, not only teeth, it definitely has helped define for the city as well as the community, what would be considered a nuisance. I mean, as you look at our current one, anyone could make quite a bit of arguments in regards to that.
Yeah, and I'll make that argument right now. Isn't this pretty objective? The offensiveness. What if some people don't consider it offensive?
Correct.
So, I mean, if you're only getting, the certain, written logged complaints, what about the people in close proximity or whatever that, their voice isn't heard. They're just like, they don't have a leg to say, well, it's not offensive to me. So I don't know. I feel like this is very objective, and it's very regulatory, and I get it. I mean, there are complaints. I understand it. I've smelled the odor myself. I'm not offended by it. There's a business trying to operate up there, and I want them to have success, but I also don't want people nearby feeling like, they're offended. But what if the larger majority objectively is less offended?
I can only go after the definition. What the Court of Appeals has determined what is an offensive smell.
Right.
Because this was a problem and this is why it goes to why it went to the Court of Appeals to be determined, because prior to that, it had never been determined, right? And so a lot of the defendants and the appellates made that argument, or made arguments during that case, say, hey, what is offensive? In that particular case, they actually overturned a warrant because they felt that the affiant did not actually lay out the appropriate definition of what was offensive. Because in essence, some neighbors were complaining about marijuana smoke, and they were offended by it. However, the affiant, which was the police officer, was unable to articulate why a reasonable person wouldn't be offended by it. And the Court of Appeals said that whether a reasonable person would find a particular odor offensive depends on several factors, including the nature of the odor, its intensity, duration, and frequency, and whether it continues or intermittent in whether it is continuous or intermittent in the circumstance in which it is smelled. That's how they defined how you determined what would be an offensive smell. So that's and then DEQ created this scoring system sort of based on that definition.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. And, I'll use an example that's a poor example because we don't have any feedlots within the city limits of Prineville. But a lot of people would consider that to be an offensive odor.
Mm-hmm. Some even an unsanitary condition.
Exactly. So I fear that there could be farther outreaching implications of something like this. And I don't know the answer. I don't know the regulatory answer to it. I'm afraid that it could branch out, farther than where we're intending right now.
Yeah, with any ordinance passed, any law passed, sometimes there are unrecognized consequences thereof.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And we try with all of our nuisances to, me and the Prineville Police Department work pretty close. They have a community resource officer. A lot of the nuisances are animal related, to be frank. But we try to do our best to prosecute those cases on the most objective possible process. Our particular community resource officers really work like with nuisances. It's a lot about mitigating them, right? And so that's what our police department really works on trying to do, is to mitigate. But at a certain point, it becomes impossible to do it. In this particular case, now we actually have what this ordinance does is it actually creates a scoring system in regards to being able to test, so that the actual the person that owns the property would be able to understand how to avoid a nuisance.
Shane, I understand and appreciate your concerns. This is something that I think is going to be very rare, very, very rarely used, but it does give us the ability to quantify and qualify and measure with some objectivity.
Yeah.
And issue.
But I can already see where the path this is leading to. There's going to be a certain group of people in a certain area that are going to be made well aware of this. I would expect and anticipate it to be used.
That could be.
So that's where I'm getting at.
But we have to respect the concerns of the community as well as businesses. So it's a balance. How do you reach that? And this gives us a measuring tool of sorts to move forward. May not be perfect, but it's
objective measure tool.
Questions? So this is for the first presentation.
This is for the first presentation. It can be voted on tonight. The council can also recommend if it wants further workshops in regards to developing the table, it can do that. You can have public hearings to try to develop the table if you feel that this doesn't appropriately represent what a reasonable person would find offensive. Again, I didn't make these up. I took them off the DEQ report that they issued in 2014. So That's where those numbers come from.
And I think you did just what we asked you to do here a while back. I think having that matrix and stuff, that was our concern, and I think it does give us a tool. If there's no more discussion, I would make a motion to approve ordinance 1310, an ordinance amending chapter 93 to the Prineville City Code regarding nuisances.
For its first presentation.
Pardon me,
For its first presentation.
first reading, yes.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Again, any questions or concerns?
We don't want to consider a public hearing on this at all, or? That would be my question to the council. No?
It will come back to the council a second time.
Right.
The community will, has the opportunity to hear about it, and if they want to show up, by all means, we will hear comments at the next meeting. So, motion to approve ordinance number 1310 for its first reading has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. Motion passes, and it will come back on September 8th.
Come back on September 8th for its second presentation.
Right, thank you. Moving on to resolutions. Resolution number 1647, approving intergovernmental agreement, IGA, with the Department of Land Conservation and Development for housing assistance. Josh Smith.
Evening, Council. For the record, Joshua Smith, Planning Director. This IGA is a little bit of an oversight. It's kind of coming back. If you remember last year, the council supported the application of a grant to do the housing capacity analysis. That grant we received from DLCD. We have DLCD run those grants. They've contacted 3J Consulting. This process is underway. We've already started. I think it was an oversight that they didn't come back and have us do the IGA for the grant. That is what this is, basically saying that we're going to follow through with adopting our housing capacity analysis when 3J finishes it and it meets all the state guidelines and such. So that's essentially what this is. The process is underway. It's just closing that loop. Any questions on what you read or if what you thought? It's the same, basically the same thing we did 8 years ago. We do these now 8 years, every 8 years instead of every 20 years. So it's just going to come up more and more. It's essentially like the EOA, but for housing. Yeah, the nice scope of work.
The classic IGA from the state of Oregon. We'll give you money, you follow our rules.
Yep. It's a better way to put it. There we go.
Are there any questions on the resolution? Very good. Is there a motion to approve resolution number 1647?
I'll move to approve resolution 1647, approving an intergovernment agreement with the Department of Land Conservation and Development for housing assistance.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Council.
All right. Too much for 1647. Resolution number 1648. Approving federal subrecipient grant agreement for the rail crossing safety program. Mr. Wiederholt.
It's a long one. Thank you. For the record, Matt Wiederholt, City of Prineville Railway. So the request tonight is to approve resolution number 1648 to authorize staff to go into an agreement for this crossing safety program through the Oregon Department of Transportation. This came up pretty fast. Within about they gave us 1 month to put in the application. 1 month later, they've approved our application. So, and we have 1 year to expend the money. So what we're getting for this is all of our old signals. So everything inside the case would be 5 of them, replaced in the 1978 three of them from the early eighties and one from 87. So we'll go from all the old technology to microprocessors and 78 batteries, which is a big deal because they're about $800 a piece. So in total, the project's going to be about $281,000, of which the state will pay 252,300 and some change for that. So pretty good deal for us to get that upgraded. It's been on our capital plan, but it's one of those things where we've just been kind of pushing it out. So this is a good opportunity to get that caught up. So tonight we're requesting that you approve resolution number 1648 so we can go into agreement.
Thank you. Are there any questions? None. Hearing no questions or concerns, is there a motion to approve resolution number 1648?
I'll move to approve resolution number 1648, approving federal sub-recipient grant agreement for rail crossing safety program.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Again, questions or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, we appreciate it. Thank you.
See nothing else on the agenda. So it is the opportunity for visitors, appearances, and requests. Anyone that would like to speak to the council, please come to the podium and share your concerns. Is there anyone online that would like to speak? I guess we have reached the end. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah.